If you know me, you know I am a huge Clionadh fan, and I have been waiting for them to launch something new, and we finally have the On Top of the World palette. Well, actually it's a collection because there are also some nail polishes, but I'm going to be doing some detailed swatches of this palette, then I'll do a look using the palette, and I'll give you my thoughts on the whole collection really at the end of the video, along with my thoughts on how this compares to existing shadows in Clionadh's lineup. So if that all sounds good to you, please keep watching. Also, just in case you're new here, my name is NOOPUR, and I love indie makeup and all things color and sparkle, and I really love Clionadh, as I have already said. Thank you so much for clicking on this video, first of all, and if you aren't already subscribed, I do hope you would consider subscribing. And just to get it out of the way, I would really appreciate it if you could give the video a like as well, especially if you find it helpful. Now, per usual, before I give you any launch details, I just want to disclose that I did receive the palette to do some paid swatches for the brand, and the nail polishes I got just in regular PR, but everything will be launching on Wednesday, August 13th at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and the palette will retail for $104.99 Canadian, which converts to approximately $76.70 USD. But as far as I know, everything will be code eligible. I do have an affiliate code with the brand. It's just my name, NOOPUR, and since it is affiliated, that does mean that I earn a small commission from it. So thank you so much if you use it. It really does help me out, and just thank you in general for supporting me always. And then, in addition to all of that, Clionadh is also running their 9th anniversary sale, and I don't think that the collection is included because it's brand new, but a ton of other stuff will be included in the sale. I will pop all of the details in the description box, and this does include their stained glass collection, which, in case you're curious what some of my favorites are, I do actually have a video talking through a lot of my favorites from their newer shades. It was the first video I ever did on this channel, so I'm a little awkward in it and the quality's not the best, but I will link it up here so you can go check it out if you're interested. I also put together a little curation of some of my fall favorites from Clionadh, just because I feel like that's just a fun way to get excited about my collection again, and I will be posting swatches of this over on Instagram at some point, but I will make sure to put it on my post tab over here since I know that not everyone follows me over on Instagram. Here's the cover of the palette up close. It's a vertical palette that opens like a book. And here's the inside. There are 10 shades. I'm counting the split pan at the top as 2 separate shades. The pan sizes are slightly smaller than the stained glass shadows. They are the same size as the pans in light scatters, and the palette is magnetic. Now here's the whole palette swatched out. You get 4 true iridescents at the top of the palette, and then the remaining 6 shades are a little different. I'll describe them more a little later on. Nothing is super flaky, but overall these have a little texture to them and work really well as both standalone shades as well as toppers. I love that you basically get a full rainbow of multichromes in this palette. Just popping in to let you know how I do my individual shimmer swatches. So I do a built up swatch up top and a sheer swatch at the bottom, and then when I'm moving my hand like this in front of the camera, I do it both in focus as well as out of focus, just so you can get a well-rounded idea of what the eyeshadow looks like. Simply Beaming is a baseless iridescent with gold sparkles that don't shift, and also a scattering of pinprick orange sparkles that aren't really visible from a distance but do make it a little bit dimensional. It has a small particle size and is pretty smooth. Over the Moon is a baseless iridescent that looks icy from a distance but is packed with multicolored sparkles that are blue, purple, pink, and green. It has a super fine particle size and is very smooth. Head in the Clouds is a baseless iridescent with sparkles that shift a desaturated pink, peach, and gold, then an intense green at an angle. This one is the chunkiest shade in the palette with a slightly flaky texture, but it can be smoothed out with some effort. Cloud 9 is a baseless iridescent that shifts from a soft green to pinky purple. The colors are a bit on the more muted side compared to the other shades. It has a fine particle size and is very smooth. The next 6 shades all have the same texture. They have a medium particle size and do smooth out, but there is a piecey quality to them that makes them very sparkly and also really good toppers. They have a slight base to them that doesn't show up much, but it does intensify the color more than a true baseless iridescent. Joys of Spring shifts from a pink to peach to gold and even a chartreuse green at a very sharp angle. It is super glowy but also sparkly. Happy as a Clam shifts from orange to gold to green and is one of the brightest orange shades I've ever seen. It's almost neon. Jump for Joy shifts from gold to green and even teal at a very sharp angle. It feels more yellow and rich than other similar gold shifting shades. shades. Happy-Go-Lucky shifts from an intense green to blue and even an indigo at a sharp angle. There are also pinprick blue sparkles that aren't super visible, but they make the shade a bit dimensional. Walking on Air shifts from blue to purple to pink to even peach at a very sharp angle. The blue is not super punchy and more on the muted side. Feeling Sky High shifts from purple to pink to peach and even gold at a sharp angle. It also has tiny blue sparkles that pop more when you sheer it out. So since this palette has no mattes, I do need to dip into something else to do an entire look, but I do want the look to be very focused on the shimmers, so I'm going to keep my matte work very simple and pretty neutral, and I just want more opportunities to play with the new Ellis Volume 2. So I think I'm just gonna go down this neutral column over here to do like a simple blend in my crease. Picking up this one first on a fairly large blending brush. I'm really roughly running this through my crease. This shade doesn't show up much on me. I've actually done this eye already and you can see it doesn't really show up, but I want this here just to kind of gives the other shade something to blend into and to kind of set my eye primer, which I don't always do, but I am kind of using the shade to do that just to make sure the blend is very soft for this look. Now I'm picking up this shade on a more tapered blending brush. This shade is also going all throughout my crease, and I'm going to build it up a little bit slowly to match this eye, but I'm focusing this right in the deepest part of my crease and then blending it slowly upwards, but not too much. I really like that you can build these shades slowly if you want, especially if you lay down a lighter shade first like I did, but you can also use them with maximum pigment if you prefer. I'm also running this shade pretty much all along the lower lash line. Now I'm going to take the deepest shade in the column, and I'm kind of stamping that here in a diagonal angle, wiping off the brush, and then just softening up the edges like this. And I'm going to use a lighter shade to blend it out so that it doesn't get too smoky and deep over here. I'm going to take this shade up from it to do that. Just going to soften this outer edge over here a little bit, smoke it out, and blend it into the crease shade. And then finishing off the lower lash line with that deepening up shade over here, and then just blending it out a touch and into the outer corner. Before I move on to the shimmers, I just want to note that I'm using the Shine On Shimmer Enhancer from Clionadh in collaboration with Back to the Brow as kind of this isn't exactly a glitter glue, but it is meant to go underneath the shimmers to kind of help them stick on. I just think that this works so well with Clionadh shadows. I'm going to be starting with this shimmer down here first. It is a beautiful blue to purple shifting shade. So I'm going to be applying this to the outer 2/3 of my lid. First, I'm going to use my finger just to really mesh it with that shimmer enhancer, and it goes on so well over that. And I love that you can already see the shift that's happening over there. Now I'm picking up some more on a brush, and I'm just going to get it closer to the lid, feather it out in this direction, and also creep it into the inner part of my lid. Now, since this is a shimmer focused look, I am kind of taking this up into my crease a little bit, but tapping it out as I go, so it's a very sheer, scattered layer up here. I wiped off the brush, and now I'm going to pick up the Over the Moon side of the split pan. I'm tucking this shade in the inner third of my lid, and this one I did get a little bit of fallout with because I don't know what it is. It just felt more powdery than the other shade, but if you do your base, or if you do your eyes first, then that'll take care of any fallout. And it's not a terrible amount of fallout. I feel like it is just kind of normal for glittery shadows. Picked up a little bit more, just the tiniest tap in the pan, and I'm using this to kind of feather it into the other shade so that there's not a harsh line there. But honestly, these shadows work so well together because I feel like this shade in the inner portion is more of an icy, silvery shade with a lot of blue and purple specks in it, and then this shadow on the outer half goes from that blue to a purple, so they really do I feel like you can tell that they're different shadows, but at the same time, this blends so well together, it just seems seamless. The other reason that I feel like you can tell that there are two different shadows is that the particle size of the inner shadow is smaller. It's just a smoother shadow overall, and it seems more of a uniform shine versus this shadow over here, which looks more glittery. It's not actually glittery, but it has more of that scattered, sparkly effect, if that makes sense. Now to finish up in the inner corner, I'm going to pick up this shade over here, Cloud 9. I'm putting this in my usual placements over here and also dragging it up through the inner swoop This shimmer is very smooth. It has a fine particle size, I feel like, which I really do prefer for the inner corner, inner swoop area. I love how that green looks with the rest of this look. It's very, very pretty. Here's the final look, and I feel like I've said at least a couple times before that I really do like to wear neutral mattes with colorful shimmers if the shimmers have like a sheerness to them, and I feel like this palette is going to be so perfect for that, but you could also use them with colorful mattes, of course. But just like, I love how this turned out. It looks so good. And I also really love the shimmer that I have on the outer part of my lids. It is so sparkly even in this lighting, so I can't wait to show you Sparkle Cam. Here is the Sparkle Cam, and I just love how this looks in this lighting. It is so gorgeous, and you can also see like how shifty this shadow is on the outer 2/3 of my lid, but I think you can also see with the sparkles, like that texture I was talking about. It looks so like almost glittery, but even though the shadow in the inner portion of my lid is more smooth, it's not lacking in sparkle in any way either. It's so, just everything about these shadows is so pretty. Now let's talk about this palette as a whole. I think that this is a really smart launch from Clionadh, both for newcomers to the brand as well as existing customers who might already have several of their shadows. And the reason that I say that is because I feel like if you are a newcomer to the brand and you just like don't know what to pick up from them, or if you don't like single shadows and you're very overwhelmed by their catalog, I think this is a really great starting point to try some of their formulas, because this is such a versatile palette since it is a lot of like toppers and iridescents that can go with such a large variety of mattes. But also, if you already have a ton of Clionadh shades, I still think that this is going to add to your collection, because I don't think that like I feel like most of the shadows in here are not overlapping with their existing collection, especially these like colored base ones down here, or not colored base ones, but like the non-true iridescents. I feel like these are such a beautiful texture that I don't quite have anything like it from Clionadh. Now, the other reason that I think that I don't have anything quite like this in my collection, even though I own a lot of Clionadh, is kind of like, it has to do with their older iridescents. So I have said that their Series 1 and Series 2 iridescents are not my favorite, because I just feel like, especially with Series 1, they're not that sparkly and they're just not as special, and I feel like they can be a little dull and thick. And with Series 3, I noticed a huge improvement. I do like those iridescents. They are sparkly, but the particle size is still very fine and they're very smooth. Now with these iridescents, they are even more sparkly than the Series 3 iridescents, and they have a little bit of texture to them. They are not chunky or flaky by any means, but the texture makes them so sparkly, and also makes them really good toppers. The textures in this palette kind of remind me of Clionadh's glitter multichromes. Not all of them, but a couple of them have a similar texture to these. Also, the dimensional light line and the dimensional shades, a couple of those also have a similar texture where it's just a bit more piecey and it looks really like glittery on the eyes. I also really like that even though this is called an iridescent palette, you can see that only these top shades over here are true iridescents that have that like white base, but the ones down here, you can see they don't look white in the pan. They all look like their respective colors, like they make a rainbow, and I really love that. The fact that they don't have a white base means that I'm not going to get as much of like a white cast or ashiness from them, so I feel like these are going to work a lot better on a larger range of skin tones. The only thing similar in Clionadh's lineup that I can think of are the deep iridescents that are supposed to be exactly what they say. They are iridescents, but on a slightly deeper base. They have like a medium gray base. These kind of remind me like that in concept, but a little bit tweaked, because these bases are a lot lighter than those. So again, I think that these are going to work on a wider range of skin tones, but also these shimmers are way more sparkly than the deep iridescents, which I feel like are more of a sheen than they are a sparkle. Speaking of the colors in here, I love that this is basically a rainbow palette, because like I said, these are all like pink, orange, yellow, green, blue, purple, but then you have some iridescents up here that kind of like round things out, and this one is like kind of like a washed out pinkish shade, this one is like a washed out greenish shade, then you have a gold, and then this icy bluish shade over here. And I will say, if there was one thing that I feel like I wish this palette had, I wish one of these shades shades, like this one over here. I wish it was like a true icy silver white type of topper shade instead of this one being like, it looks like icy in the inner portion of my eye over here, but really it has like a ton of multicolored sparkles, and it is really, really pretty. But I think if this palette did have like an icy silver PC topper type shade, it would make it absolutely perfect. Something else that I like about this palette is the smaller pan sizes. So these are the same pan sizes as the pans in the Light Scatters palette. They are smaller than the Stained Glass Collection pans, which I am a fan of because I'm not exactly hitting pan on eyeshadows these days, and I feel like having smaller pans allows them to include more shades in the palette. Like, you technically get 10 shades, and I feel like 10 multichromes could run you well over $100, but they managed to keep this around like 76, 77 USD, and so I would much rather have smaller pan sizes. And they're not even that much smaller than a stained glass pan. It's like just a little bit of a difference. And just to compare, here's On Topper the World next to Light Scatters. You can see, like, this is what I mean by Clionadh doesn't have anything like quite like On Topper the World in their collection, because Light Scatters is like, it's just like an assortment of shades and formulas, and there's only one true iridescent in this palette, and it's like a multicolored sparkle shade that's very different from anything in this palette. All in all, I really love this launch from Clionadh, and I would love to see more palettes like this that are all shimmer but curated and have some type of concept to them. Like, I would love to see more of that from the brand in the future. That's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching till the end. I always really, really appreciate it. Let me know in the comments if you're going to be picking up this palette or anything else from their anniversary sale. Also, please don't forget to give the video a like before you go, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!